Somewhere in Cairo, a street was already filling with people who hadn't watched the final whistle yet. They didn't need to. The score was about to make history for Egypt. The 11 minutes where nobody in that stadium moved because Egypt was 2 goals up on the team that had won the World Cup twice in a row. And for the first time in 100 years of trying, this looked like the night it finally happened. It wasn't. What took that moment away from Egypt wasn't a tackle, or a mistake on the pitch, or a moment of Argentine brilliance. It was a review, a pause, a decision made by someone the crowd couldn't see, about a foul that happened seconds before the goal that mattered. 13 minutes later, the lead was gone, and so was the match. So, for a while, was the idea that, was this tournament being decided by the players on the pitch at all? Now, here's the strange part. That wasn't even the loudest argument at this World Cup. Weeks earlier, a phone had rung inside FIFA. On the other end was the President of the United States, asking about a red card that hadn't even been served yet. Within 2 days, it wasn't. FIFA reversed a suspension it had only reversed once before in its history, and its own president is now being investigated for it. And while the world argued about that, 2 American states quietly began building a legal case against FIFA itself over a ticket that cost more than most people's rent for a year. So, a goal that vanished, a phone call that undid a punishment, a price tag 2 governments are now trying to explain. 3 different rooms, 3 different decisions, and by the end of this, you'll understand why they all lead back to the same uncomfortable question. The one nobody at FIFA has answered yet. When the whistle blows at this World Cup, who's actually deciding what happens next? It arrived with a simple promise. Video assistant referee. A camera in the sky, watching every angle a referee could miss. The idea was almost beautiful. No more scandals, no more nights that haunt a nation for a generation. Just the truth, replayed in slow motion, and fairness would follow. Nobody expected the truth to feel this uncomfortable, because the technology got good, almost too good. It can now measure a player's position by the width of a shoelace, a sliver of space no human eye could ever catch in real time. And it's been using that precision to erase goals that, moments earlier, had entire nations on their feet. In Iran's group match against Egypt, a stoppage time equalizer went in. The bench emptied. The celebration lasted about 4 seconds, just long enough for the review to begin. When it ended, the goal was gone, ruled offside by a margin so small it needed a frozen frame just to see it at all. 2 days later, it happened again. Colombia scored deep into stoppage time. A header that would have handed them a perfect record through the group stage. Ruled out. A defender's heel, fractions of an inch beyond the last line. Here's what makes this so hard to sit with. Both calls were almost certainly correct. Offside doesn't bend for effort, or emotion, or history. A player is either level with the last defender, or not. But when a difference invisible to the naked eye can erase the biggest moment of a nation's football century, something strange starts happening in the minds of the people watching. The decision is correct, but it just doesn't feel fair. And once that gap opens, it doesn't close easily. Where there was no measurement to hide behind, just a human being, staring at a screen, deciding what he believed he saw. Ghana were denied a penalty in the final minutes of a scoreless match against England. Lionel Messi walked away from a challenge that, on almost any other pitch, ends in a red card. While in this situation, not even a yellow card was shown. Harry Kane went down under contact from a goalkeeper and got nothing. Then, a few matches later, won a penalty in a situation that looked almost identical. Same kind of moment. 2 very different outcomes. Former players and commentators started saying the quiet part out loud. Not that the system was broken, but that it seemed to bend one way for the biggest names, and another way for everyone else. And then, in the round of 16, all of that frustration found its breaking point. Egypt against Argentina. This was supposed to be the night Egypt finally arrived, a first-ever World Cup quarter-final against the two-time defending champions, in a match nobody outside Egypt gave them a real chance of winning. For 79 minutes, they were winning it anyway. 2-0, Argentina's captain, the greatest player of his generation, looked like a man running out of answers. Then came the moment that should have ended it. Mustafa Zico found the match, except it didn't count. VR stepped in, found a foul several moves earlier in the build-up, and wiped the goal from the board. By the next morning, the Egyptian Football Association had filed a formal complaint with FIFA, demanding an investigation into the officiating crew and asking that the referee and his assistants be removed from the tournament. Egypt's head coach said his players had been cheated. Some of the players went even further online, questioning whether the match had been decided somewhere other than the pitch. Within hours, the word rigged was spreading across social media in multiple languages, appearing alongside Lionel Messi's name. FIFA still hasn't responded as of the time this documentary was being made. Now here's where the story has to slow down and be honest. There is no confirmed evidence that this match, or any match in this tournament, was fixed. None. That matters, and it deserves to be said clearly. But here's what is true, and perhaps just as damaging. By the final whistle, millions of people were ready to believe it could have been fixed, because they had already watched a series of decisions that felt inconsistent from match to match. Egypt wasn't alone either. Belgium filed complaints. Ecuador did too. Iran followed. And 2 weeks before any of that unfolded, something happened that pushed this story beyond football. Folarin Balogun plays for the United States. During a group stage match, he received a red card, triggering an automatic one-game suspension under FIFA's disciplinary rules. That suspension was due to keep him out of the knockout match against Belgium. Then President Donald Trump told reporters he had personally asked FIFA to review the decision. He said the red card was unfair. He even described the referee as looking, in his words, a little bit suspect.
And this referee, who is a little bit suspect, if you check his past.
2 days later, FIFA reversed the suspension. The organization cited an extraordinary clause in its disciplinary code, one allowing a judicial body to suspend a punishment under exceptional circumstances, a clause that had reportedly been used only once before in modern World Cup history. President Trump publicly thanked FIFA for reversing what he called a great injustice. But Belgium saw this differently. Their football federation said they were astonished. Officials claimed FIFA refused to meaningfully address their objections. Belgium's head coach compared the entire situation to an April Fool's joke. Then, Belgium stepped onto the pitch and defeated the United States 4-1. For many, the result felt less like revenge and more like a statement. But what happened next? A human rights organization confirmed it was referring FIFA President Gianni Infantino to Olympic ethics investigators, accusing him of breaching football's long-standing commitment to political neutrality. It wasn't even the first complaint. Months earlier, another advocacy group had filed a nearly identical case, backed by Norway's Football Federation and dozens of members of the European Parliament. 7 months later, FIFA still hadn't issued an update or a public response. None of this appeared out of nowhere. Over the previous year, Gianni Infantino had built an unusually close relationship with the sitting US president. He created the inaugural FIFA Peace Prize and awarded it to him, and reports claimed FIFA even opened an office inside Trump Tower in New York, an office that, by most accounts, has seen very little use since opening. Former FIFA president Sepp Blatter called the relationship excessive, arguing that it blurred the line between football and politics. Infantino defended the relationship, arguing that hosting a World Cup across 3 countries required close cooperation with the White House. Perhaps that's true, but perception matters. A red card reversed after a phone call from the Oval Office isn't something any governing body can quietly dismiss as routine. And while those debates unfolded in boardrooms and ethics committees, another controversy was growing. For the first time in its history, FIFA introduced dynamic pricing for World Cup tickets, allowing prices to rise and fall with demand, much like airline seats. Between October and April 2026, prices climbed sharply across most matches. The main ticket categories increased by roughly a third on average, while face value seats for the final approached $11,000. On resale markets, some tickets sold for even more. By late May, the Attorneys General of New York and New Jersey had seen enough. They issued subpoenas demanding FIFA hand over internal records showing how tickets were priced, allocated, and why some supporters who purchased premium seats were later moved to worse sections without warning. California opened its own parallel inquiry. Members of Congress wrote directly to Gianni Infantino, accusing FIFA of keeping prices artificially high even while resale values were falling, the opposite of what dynamic pricing is supposed to achieve. FIFA's response never changed. The organization insisted that the market, not FIFA, determined ticket prices, and that this was simply the cost of attending the world's biggest sporting event. None of all these cases by themselves proves that the World Cup has been rigged. That conclusion simply isn't supported by the confirmed evidence, and it shouldn't be presented as fact. But something else has been confirmed, and it may be just as significant. Millions of supporters across dozens of countries no longer watch this tournament the way they once did. Some still see a football match. Others see a system they no longer fully trust. And once that trust disappears, every whistle, every review, and every controversial decision carries a weight it never used to. No explanation becomes convincing enough. No statement feels complete enough. And rebuilding that confidence becomes far harder than losing it in the first place. So when the final whistle blows on the 19th of July, and a trophy is lifted into the air in front of 1 billion people, the real question won't be which team earned it. It'll be whether anyone still believes it was decided on the pitch at all. Because behind every trophy, every transfer, and every controversy, there's a story most people never hear. Remember to subscribe to our channel, and we'll bring you the side of football everyone else misses.